I want to tell you about my own personal experience. In 1958, when I finished Bible college, I went out to pioneer my first work at the suburb of Seoul City. Those days, Korea was completely broken up by the war, and we were very poor. And especially I went out to the suburb area, and most people were living as a beggar. They were begging food. And I put the old American Marine tent, and I began to preach. And humanly speaking, my future was hopeless. My ministry was in desperate situation. But whenever I prayed, oh, God would put into my heart a moving vision in my heart. I felt the fire of God burning in my heart. I had only 5 members. I had no food to eat. I was chilly. I had no place to sleep. I was living under the tent. But God gave me a moving sensation of the visions and dreams for my future. God's Holy Spirit gave me a vision for my future. God said, you can have biggest church in Korea. This was God's word. You know, I didn't see any real vision which I can see visually. But God's word by the Holy Spirit, very silently spoken into my spirit, produced vision. God's Spirit said, you can have the largest church in Korea. And when I opened my eyes, I laughed at me. What? Biggest church in Korea? You have this old-tone American Marine tent. You have a few straw mats spread on the floor. And you have no financial support from any other source. How could you have the largest church in Korea? Already, Presbyterians, Methodists, Baptists, they have tremendous support from America. Funds are flowing into Korea, and they are building a big church. And you are just a member of fledgling Assemblies of God, and they don't send any penny to Korea. Because the policy of Assemblies of God Foreign Mission is not to support, to build the church. They are only supporting missionary. So there were no church building fund ever came. And I could hardly eke out an existence in that church. And so when I see my situation through my 5 senses, my future was full of blizzard, hopeless. But when I began to pray, oh, the Holy Spirit began to put the visions and dreams into my heart. In my prayer, I could see myself as the pastor of the largest church in Korea. So I was in a schizophrenic situation. I wondered if I should believe that or not. When I opened my eyes, I was a great unbeliever. When I closed my eyes, I was a great believer. And when I was praying, I was living in Disneyland. So I enjoyed praying at those days because since my circumstance was so terrible that I'd rather wanted to sit down and pray and live in that visionary land. In my vision, I saw a great church. At that time, that promise of God produced a picture in my heart, which showed me that I had 3,000 members. That God's revelation naturally produced a clear picture in my heart. I could see a big auditorium which had 3,000 seats. And I was preaching to them, and what a time I had in my vision dream. And those days I really prayed. I prayed every day for 5 hours. Not because I was spiritual, but I had nothing to do. What can you do with 5 persons in your church? So I would just sit down under the tent church, and I would pray and pray and pray. And I was enjoying that vision. And many a times I wondered if I was going to lose my mind. Because no senior pastor ever told me about this vision and the power of this vision. So it was new experience. In Bible college, no one told me about this situation. So on one hand, I was rejoicing. On the other hand, I wondered if I were having a psychological problem. But the Holy Spirit helped me to have that dream alive in my heart. I was rejoicing. And finally, I began to confess that before people. Before the 5 people. I said, we are going to build a big sanctuary. We sit with 3,000 people. People are going to come to our church by the thousand. Finally, our church will become the largest church in the world. And they all laughed. And they thought that really I was going to lose my mind. Because I had nothing to eat. We were in such a poor situation. And my present wife was my girlfriend at that time. And she came to me and she said, if you keep on telling this kind of foolish thing outlives you, I'm ashamed to become a friend with you because people are all criticizing about you. But I said, I really have that vision in my heart. I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant with that 3,000 people in my heart. And almost she doubted. This is how men can be pregnant. But 1961, by the series of miracle after miracle, things begin to happen. So I tell you that you are not going to make the vision is going to make you. And I strongly tell you this because of my experience. If I try to make the vision vision to be realized, I would have failed. But vision began to make me as that pastor. So by 1961, I moved down to the Södermund, the downtown. And at that time, American Assemblies of God had the first product of the World Conquest program. And they built a revival center. And John Hurston became the pastor of the revival center. And he took me down to the Södermund. And I resisted. I wanted to stay at my place. But John Hurston begged me to come down together with him and to build the center. So we came down there, and that was the beginning of this church. God began to pour out His Spirit, and by 1964, we had 3,000 members. And that time, the Yongnam Presbyterian Church had 6,000 members. So I was praying to the Lord, Father, please give me a slight more numbers than 6,000. Not because of the competition, but I always felt that I have better gospel than the Presbyterian has. They have good salvation message, but they don't have the message of the baptism of the Holy Spirit, fullness of the Holy Spirit. But I had great doubt in my heart. I could not believe. And we had early morning prayer meeting, and I was praying every day. I said, oh God, let this church grow to more than 6,000 members. I was praying and praying, and suddenly one day, the Holy Spirit gave me the vision. Vision settled down in my heart. Suddenly I could see my church as the church of 6,000. God calls those things which be not as if they were. You are already possessing the goal of vision in your heart. When you have vision, vision is going beyond the barrier of time and space. And you already see the end result of your vision. Suddenly, God enlarged the capacity of my heart, and I could see my church with 6,000 members. Suddenly I was changed. So I tell you, you are not changing the vision. Vision is going to change you. As the vision came, I was a changed person. In my heart, already I was a pastor of 6,000 members. My mental capacity was enlarged. I could never be satisfied with 3,000. And I was rejoicing. And the vision produced the faith. I believed with every fiber of my being. I believed that we are going to have more than 6,000. And by 1969, we had 18,000 members. We had the largest church in the world. In Korea, not in the world. So I was satisfied. Oh, I was very satisfied. So, already at that time I had a good parsonage and chauffeur-driven car and good family. And I was enjoying my ministry. And I said, this is it. I have arrived at plateau. Now I'll enjoy the rest of my life. And one day I came to my office, greatly rejoicing. I laid on my attaché on the table and I sat down and I began to pray. Then the voice of Spirit spoken into my spirit. Joe, your ministry is finished here. You can't enjoy the product of your ministry anymore. I want you to go and start new church. And this time I want you to build a church. We sit with 10,000 people. That word was given to me in a split of second. Suddenly, all of that idea instantly came into my heart. Yes, you are going to leave this church, and you are going to build a church. We sit with 10,000 people. I said, no, not me. This is my second time of pioneering church. Why should I always pioneer church and give my church to some others? Why should I suffer alone? No. Now I have my home and my children. I can't. No way. But the vision was given. It's like an explosion. The vision blossomed up. Suddenly, I felt as if I were alien to the church. Suddenly, I was alien to the church. From that time, when I come on Sunday to stand on the pulpit, I felt as if I were the guest to that pulpit. And I was dreaming. Even though I was resisting, but in my heart, I was dreaming the dream of God. I was dreaming a church with 10,000 seats. I was dreaming that. And that dream changed my whole personality. And I was looking for the ground. And I tried to persuade my elders to follow me. Then by the series of miracles, God led me to come to this Yeouido Island. At that time, this was just big sand dunes. The city was developing this area. But nobody paid any attention. They all laughed. Mass media laughed. The city would have a great fiasco if they would ever try to bring people out there, because there was no traffic here and nor any light or running water. They said it will take decades to develop that place. But the Holy Spirit directed my heart to this place. You go there. And all the people said, now Joe is going to fail completely. He make a pathetic decision. He's going to fail. And I was struggling if my vision were right one. And one deacon came to me and says, Pastor, I'm terribly worried about you. I have very, very strange revelation from the Lord about you. My heart sank already. I was trembling, and she came as a prophetess of the gloom. So I was trembling. I said, "Sister, tell me your revelation." See, my revelation, while I was praying, I saw clear revelation. I saw a queen bee fly out of our church here. Then all the bees began to leave this church and follow that queen bee. And when I was following that queen bee went out of the town and went to that barren land, Yeouido. And when the queen bee settled down Yeouido, all the bees surrounded that queen bee and began to build a beehive. And she said, surely this is the prophecy of the desolation of our church here. She said that queen bee means the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit leaves our church. Then all of those bees to me seems to be angels. And when the Holy Spirit leaves, all the protecting angels leave. And this is the prophecy of desolation of our church. And I jumped up. I said, "Sister, that queen bee is me." I am going to leave this church. I'm going to go to Yeouido. And all the Christians are going to follow me out. And that really confirmed my vision. I was all worrying if my vision was right one, and this lady came and confirmed my vision through her revelation. And I was strengthened. And practically those years I was living in my vision stream. You know, I had only $1,000 in the account in the church. But at that time, dollar was very valuable. And to build this church, I needed at least $100 million. And I didn't have money. I have just $1,000. And our elders asked me any question. They said, "Joe, do you have any support from the American Assemblies of God?" I said, "No." "Can you raise any money in America for this project?" I said, "Why should I go to America to raise funds to build Korean church?" I said, "We should raise funds for ourselves." And they all laughed. And they said, "You are a good preacher, but you are not good businessman." When we discuss all of this situation business-wise, you are completely failing from beginning. On first hand, our people cannot give that much money. On second hand, you can't make loan from Korean bank because they will not give any loan to church work. And thirdly, you have no place to borrow that much money. And you only have a vision, they said. Clearly they said to me, "You only have a vision. You are a great dreamer, but you can't accomplish this. And if you go out only with a dream, we will leave you. Because you are risking your life and the whole church. This is too risky that we can't follow you. We'll all together become a laughing stock." That was right. I was a dreamer. I only had a dream of God. And materially thinking, I did not have that much money. But I was blown by typhoon of that dream. And in 1969, I bought the land on credit. At that time, Dr. Chow was a deputy mayor of Seoul City. And by the influence of him and also by the recommendation of mayor, I purchased this land on credit without paying any money. Now I regret. If I were to buy any land by credit, I should have bought hundreds of acres instead of buying 5 or 6 acres. Oh, at that time, I was still not experienced. If I can pay for 5 acres, why shouldn't I buy 30 acres? Anyway, I wouldn't pay. This land is now so expensive. Every inch is gold here in Yeouido Island. But at that time, I was afraid, and I did not, my dream and vision could not reach more than 10,000 people. I thought that a 10,000 member would be the top notch. So, by blown through that vision, I came out and purchased the land. Then I made a contract with a company, and one day we came out here to have a groundbreaking service, and that day the blizzard was blowing. It was so cold, and snow was falling, and in a sense in my heart, as my future would be as Hesado says today. The weather seemed like a prophecy. But anyway, we went ahead and broke ground. And for 4 years, I died 100 times. Building a church as this size without having any money is a risky thing. And over again, I asked question to God. God, did I really see the right vision? If you don't have clear vision, you will have this kind of question constantly rising up in your heart. Father, did I see the right vision? Because when I was in desperate situation, everything seemed to be black, and God seemed to be million miles away, and I felt as if I were given up 100 times by God. And I only complete the superstructure, and I had no money, and we couldn't go on anymore. And for more than 1 year, this superstructure was rotting away. And specialists came to me and they said, if you stay a little bit longer, then you should pull down all the superstructure because these are already decayed. So every night I was sitting under that superstructure and prayed, Father, let this superstructure fall upon me, and let this place become my tomb, so that legally I may not pay the debt. I became desperate. I need a reason to die, so that I will not leave the repercussion to the church and to my family. So I said, God, help me to die logically and legally. Sincerely I prayed it because I was desperate. I had no place to turn to. So I asked question, God, did you really speak to me at the beginning? Was that vision real? But again and again, God confirmed that vision was real. Brothers and sisters, even though you have vision, don't think that your way would be rosy. Even though you have vision and faith. But again and again, God will let you die. Then God will resurrect that dream again. And God is very jealous. He would not like to give any glory to any person. So when you move ahead, first God let your vision die. Then you become desperate and you feel useless. Then God resurrect that same vision again, and God fulfill the vision and receive all the glory by himself. So you see, you couldn't do anything, but I did it. So you should never share glory with me. You must give glory totally to me. That was God's plan. So many a times your vision will die and God will resurrect if you persist. My vision died several times, all shattered. But God resurrected that vision again and again. So by 1964, we completed this church. And when you go through the trials, most of your friends would become a Job's comforter. They would all come and say, we feel sorry for Job, but something will happen. All of them. They came and said, Job, we feel sorry for you. You dreamed a too big dream and hope that God will help you somehow in some way. But we feel sorry for you. But in 1964, when I accomplished my vision through the help of God, and we had the first ministry seminar in our church with Billy Graham. Billy came, and we had about 7,000 pastors throughout Korea came together, and we had a ministry seminar at our church. And every pastor came to me, and they were praising God and praising me. They said, we knew that you would do this. We knew. What a time I had. God is very humorous. So, my vision was fulfilled. Then God said to my heart, if you lift up your head like Abraham, and if you could look to the north and south and east and the west, the land which you see, I will give to you. I will never give you any land which you don't see ahead. What you see, I will give to you. And from here, what can you see? When I was praying in the early morning, God said, from here, from 10,000 members, what can you see? I said, 30,000. Beyond that, I couldn't see. I couldn't see at all beyond the 30,000. I couldn't handle more than 30,000 people. God said, all right, I'll give you 30,000. I was pregnant with 30,000. You know, soon I had 30,000. It's like this. And the brothers and sisters, when God blesses you, God's blessing will never stop. You must be sure that 2 talent is going to become 4 talent. 5 talent is going to become 10 talent. So I said, Father, are you going to give me a bigger vision? 50,000. So I had a vision of 50,000. I was living in that vision. Clear goal. That was like a beacon light. I was rejoicing in that vision. I had 50,000. Then I went to Australia to a meeting, crisscross of the land of Australia. Then I came to the Perth, and they had a strike, and no plane was leaving. I was stranded in a Sheraton hotel for 1 week.